Bad advice, worse advice. I'm starting with you, Zakir. Give me some good advice on dealing with the attack surface.
Yeah, so this may sound glib, but you actually have to go look at your attack surface, not just trust that all of your tools have worked and that nothing has leaked out. You need to actually say, what do we have out there on the internet?
All right. Now I'm going to you, Brennan. Give me some bad advice on dealing with the attack surface.
Make sure that all of your developers can get whatever resources they want in whatever cloud environment they're operating in.
All right, one up that one, Zakir. Give me some worse advice.
I was going to say, keep pretending that you're not using the cloud. It's not actually there.
All right, that's pretty good. Let's begin.
Get ready. It's Super Cyber Friday.
Welcome, everybody, to Super Cyber Friday. Our topic today is, well, what we were just talking about, hacking the attack surface. An hour of critical thinking about losing top-down control of data and users. Our guests today, you just met them. They're Brennan O'Brien. He's the CISO over at Genesis Financial Solutions, and Zakir Durumich. You know what, Zakir, you're going to have to pronounce that one again for me. Pronounce the last name for me.
Durumarich,
founder and chief scientist for Census. Thank you so much. In fact, Census is the ones sponsoring today's episode, so thank you very much, Zakir and team, for doing just that. All right, 7 different ways to participate. Chat room, worst way to regain control of the attack surface. How do we make it 10% better? You can submit those two. Vote in the polls. You can come on video with Bring Me On, ask a question, or vote for your favorite question anytime. Today's schedule, you just saw it. Good advice, bad advice, worse advice. Then here's the bad idea we want. Worst way to regain control of the attack surface, all right? So they gave you 2 bad ones. Can you think of some worse ones? How do we make it 10% better? We want tips on how to tweak this. We will also play the public interest. It's our new favorite game here on the show. And also, we'll put a poll live 20 minutes past hour on worst way to regain control of the attack surface. We need you to vote for that because the winners will determine who's going to be playing the Department of Yes. Then we will also vote for how to make it 10% better. And worst idea contenders will face off the top 2 last questions, final advice. And then we have our meetup at the end. And stick around for our meetup because it is a ton of fun. If you have to leave and come back, do that. That's fine as well. All right, next Monday. Not next Friday, but next Monday, we're doing an in-person, in San Francisco, or virtually, you can join us, version of Super Cyber Friday. It's going to be Hacking Economics of Email Fraud. And guess what? The button at the bottom of the screen will let you register for that, either virtually or in person. So go ahead and click on that at any time during this chat. You will not in any way be taken out of this. It will open another window. You can register for it, still be in this show. All right. With that being said, let's get to our discussion at hand. And I will start with, I'm going to start with you, Zakir, and that is, for years we've been hearing stories of the attack surface getting bigger. Now it just seems infinite. And I'll tell you that, you know, I've covered like security for many, many years, and this story just keeps recurring year over year over year, and doesn't in any way seem like it's getting smaller. So do we need to be thinking about the attack surface differently so it doesn't appear so unwieldy, which is what it appears like right now?
Yeah, I mean, we see the exact same thing. I mean, even in the last year alone, we've seen the number of assets folks have online double. And year over year, I mean, that's an astounding number. And I think we have to stop pretending to ourselves that we're going to reduce this number or that our job is to take things offline. I think we have to switch mentalities and say we should forever expect there to be more coming online, that folks throughout organizations are going to be bringing things online. And security is not going to be able to prevent folks from doing this. It's really going to be a question of how does security keep up to date and track what's going on around them.
Yeah, Brennan, how have you thought differently about the attack surface, given that it's at a point where just trying to secure every little thing that comes online seems unwieldy in the sort of traditional sense?
Yeah, I think I'm going to echo Zakir here a little bit. An old HR friend of mine said to me once, "You'll never be given more resources to do less." And I think it's a very true statement here that, we're as security professionals, we have to get ahead of this by understanding how our tenants exist in various cloud environments and what our user community looks like. And from there, we can start to talk about how we're going to control that environment.
All right. In fact, by the way, we got one question that came in already that references what I just said, and I want to address this one right away, right off the bat. This comes from Ty, and it's a long question, but I'm going to only read the second half. Ty just begins by talking about like the attack surface is big. So, and this was a way of thinking, and I don't know if this is the right way of thinking of it. So just correct us if we're wrong on thinking it this way, or Ty is. If we use that as a model, again, this sort of large attack surface, and manage the attack surface by managing it from a user perspective, where they are at any given time, it might make it significantly easier. Multiple chunks, smaller attack surfaces that overlap versus one large. So the idea of not looking at it as trying to boil the ocean, but can we take the ocean into smaller segments and also look at a user perspective? Are we looking at, by the way, multiple issues here at the same time, Brennan?
Yeah, I think we're looking at two big issues, right? It very much depends on what your business does or what your organization does. But you've certainly got your user community. We've got to address the user community side of the equation, shadow IT, et cetera. But we also have sort of what services does your business offer? Very few businesses these days don't have communications happening with other organizations, right? So you can't just look at this from the perspective of the user. You have to look at it from both sides of the equation in order to get the complete picture.
Right. And that's kind of the way I kind of perceived the whole issue. Anything to add to that, Zakir?
No, I mean, I think the user half of this is a big part of it. And that's probably how we try to get ahead of the problem or lessen the surprises. But I don't think it will forever fix the problem. No matter how hard we try, there will always be shadow IT. And so I think we should put effort forth here. But you still need to have some safety net because there's just no way you'll be able to prevent all of it.
And by the way, you mentioned shadow IT, and that gets me to my second question here is, this is an issue in the combination of the cloud and shadow IT. Shadow IT is growing because of the ease of how the cloud operates, not just from an IT perspective, but from an any user perspective. And so what are the ways you're looking at it differently? Because it feels, I mean, again, we have addressed this so many times. When it feels so out of control, how are you looking at it differently, Zakir? And again, specifically the shadow IT issue.
Yeah, I think part of it is looking at what your actual vulnerabilities are and their importance to your organization. I think if you look at this as an asset management problem, you're sort of looking at it from the wrong direction, especially as assets are ephemeral. You don't know who owns them. They might only be up for a matter of seconds. I think if you're trying to track down assets, you're always going to be playing a losing game. I think what you have to really be saying is what's really posing the most risk. And some of that may be shadow IT. Some of it may be things that slip through the cracks and just weren't caught by some other tool, or it might be, there could be a million different reasons, but I think we have to look at is business importance, vulnerability, and move a little bit away from just tracking assets for the sake of tracking assets.
Yeah, agreed.
Brennan, you're nodding your head there. So can you actually give me more real world examples of how you're dealing with and that you're moving away from tracking assets for the sake of it and really isolating on essentially the crown jewels?
Yeah, and I think this takes us back to really understanding where your most important data is. I mean, in the end, the target is always the data. So if we look at it from a data centric perspective, we can follow where things are happening through a shadow IT environment, right? So I can monitor my endpoints, for example, where my users are connecting to that shadow IT, and consider, do those users have access to sensitive data? Is that something I need to bring under greater control? Or are they, is it a group of people who have nothing to do with sensitive data who are using a Miro board? Yeah, all right. We're going to have to accept certain degrees of risk in this environment.
Yeah, I mean, the ugly reality of it all. By the way, more questions coming in. That's great. Please keep submitting your questions. All right, John Doe, again, I don't know if this is your real name. I don't think it is because someone told me that I forget, there was a different name that's a John Doe. I'm not sure. But here, Does assessing your attack surface change in a hybrid cloud environment? That is what John Doe asked. Zakir?
I think that cloud makes this all more complex. I mean, I think cloud is why we have such problems, right? Anyone can bring things up. You can bring things up all over the place. You didn't used to have this, right? On-prem data centers, you had to beg someone to let you put a host out on the service, out on the internet, and that's really no longer the case. So I think cloud has really fundamentally shifted that. At the same time, the problems we're trying to protect or solve are kind of the age-old problems, right? Are we making sure things are patched? Are we making sure that data isn't exposed? So sure, has the shape changed? Yes, right? We didn't have S3 buckets 30 years ago, and that's been a huge attack vector. But the notion of data has been incorrectly exposed on the internet's the same. I think what's changed is the rate at which it's happening, the ease at which folks can make mistakes, the fact that mistakes are immediately exposed on the public internet. You have no more safety net really in the cloud. So it's more of really the same. It's just that there's so much more of it that we need to be thinking about better solutions for managing it.
But just also to address John Doe's comment there, there's nothing specifically unique about the hybrid environment that makes it any more challenging or different. It's really just the cloud aspect of it. Brennan, yes or no?
Sort of. How's that for a mid-ground approach?
Well, thanks for clearing that up for everybody.
I think one of the things that the cloud does bring is the democratization of IT, and that factor alone changes the attack surface because you've got more people who have less knowledge who are then putting that information out in the cloud, and that's why being able to monitor and manage that attack surface becomes so critical.
And I don't think there's anyone who doesn't have a hybrid situation, right? No matter what you're pretending, no one is only on-prem. No one is in just AWS. The reality is that folks have things split across a dozen clouds.
I will argue that a little bit. Many years ago, and this goes back maybe 6 years ago or 7, I was at the AWS reInvent, and I was doing one of my man on the street videos, and asking people about their IT department. And I would say a good half of the people I interviewed said, what IT department? They're as 100% cloud as cloud. So I think there's a lot of companies that are not even a shred of hybrid. You don't believe that, Zakir, though?
No, I believe that our IT department doesn't believe it.
Yes.
Yeah,
agreed. And I think add to it, that's great until they start talking about where are they printing stuff.
That's true. That gets there. Okay. This comes from Edward, and I believe this is Edward, who is the CISO over at Frost Bank. A CISO, quote, says, a CISO can lose credibility if they, quote, chase every risk out there. How are you prioritizing risk? And better yet, how are you by the way, Ed Contreras, I'm sorry. And better yet, how are you democratizing back to your executive peers the value of what you have already addressed? So not chasing risks, addressing them, communicating it back. I'm going to start with you, Brennan.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it starts back with helping everybody understand common terminology. Certain data is more risky than other data. And I can start to point to individual executives and say, you are on point for that type of data. What are you doing about it? How are you helping work with us to ensure that that data is safe and secure? Whether that's an HR executive or it's a line of business executive with access to, social security numbers or credit card information, right? I can point back to those direct executives and say, you are on point on this with me. It's not myself alone.
Okay. I'm going to now, I want to understand more, because Census, your company, is an attack surface management solution. We actually just recorded an episode of Defense in Depth on this very topic here, and how it is not a pen test either, because this became or attack surface profiling, I think it was the way it was also addressed. Is that way? What is it that people need to understand about attack surface management, Zakir, that you think a lot of people are getting confused by?
Yeah, so I think one thing is probably the role of attack surface management compared to a ton of other security products out there that all sound like they do practically the exact same thing. And I think there's a lot of folks that say, look, we have a CSPM, we have a VM tool, we have a pen tester. Like, Why do we need an nth security tool to do this? And I think what we've seen just empirically is that if all of these tools worked perfectly, yeah, maybe you wouldn't need an attack surface management, but we've yet to find an organization where that's really the case. What we find is that of all the assets in Amazon, 60% of them are in a CSPM, and then that 40% are still sitting out there. We still see the same thing about VM. I mean, one of the questions that we want to enable people to ask is, what assets do I have on the internet that are not being scanned by my vulnerability management solution? And that's a fantastic question to ask. What of my logins aren't behind my single sign-on provider? We think we fixed Log4j. Which ones did we miss? And so a lot of it is there's just so much that's falling through the cracks that's posing risk. From the pen test side, pen tests are great, but they happen once a quarter, once a year.
Well, there are some people that are. The answer is yes and no, and that pen test for many is like that, but many are trying to solve the sort of the perpetual pen testing solution as well. But we have a new game right now, and let me get to it.
It's time to play a brand new game.
So it's not brand new. We've had this for 10 weeks now, but we just haven't created the darn bumper for it yet. So that's our apology. We've been overwhelmed. Regardless, this is a fun game, and we've been playing it every week since, because everyone likes to play along. So everybody in the chat room and my two guests, Brendan Zakir, here it is, the public interest. Question number 1, most average monthly search queries, attack surface or playing field? So these are two, I guess these searches would be happening in two sort of different vectors, if you will. What do you think gets more searches, attack surface or playing field?
I'm going to go with playing field.
What do you?
I'm going to say the same.
All right. Correct answer is, and hopefully the audience gets it, attack surface. No, beats out the playing field, just barely there. All right. Okay, 0-0 for both of you. All right. Most average monthly search queries, out of control or unwieldy?
I'm going to go with out of control.
Same.
All right. Out of control or unwieldy? And the correct answer, oh no, unwieldy almost 3 times as much.
Jeez.
0-0 for both of you so far. By the way, everyone's kind of screwed this one up. All right.
Well, it's glad to know it's not just us.
No, it's not just you. All right. Known unknowns or unknown unknowns?
I think unknown unknowns.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what a known unknown is. I'm going to go with F.
No, known unknowns. It's like that's the I know
Attack
that
surface.
I have problems. I just don't know what they are.
That's right. Attack surface is a known unknown.
Yeah,
All
that's a total unknown unknown. Yeah.
I'm sticking
So
with
I'm
F.
sorry, what are you going for? You going
F.
F? Both of you? No. Oh my God. 0 for 3. It's your last chance to redeem yourselves.
It's almost like playing baseball in San Diego.
I went to my first San Diego game and they lost 8-0. So here we go. All right. Losing control or gaining ground. What do you think it is?
Losing control.
Yeah, I'm going to go with losing control as well.
You finally redeemed yourself. 1 point each. I want to know if anyone in the chat room got 100% on that. I'd be thrilled to know that. It's amazing. It's just a 50-50 chance in all of these, and it's super tough. Rarely do we get 100% from this. It's a tough game to do extremely well at, because it's hard to know what the heck everyone's thinking. Do you know Google has this thing called Google Feud, which is like a variation of the Family Feud, but it's like, when you start to type something, it has that autofill, like what are the top 10 suggestions. So it's a game where you have to figure out what those 10 are. You'd be amazed at how incredibly difficult that is. Unbelievably difficult. I've played it with my kids, and it's only like I've done it where I haven't got a single one out of all 10, and it's tough. Very, very tough. All right, let's get back to our questions at hand. So I'm going to go to my own question. The audience, get your questions in. By the way, we are at what time? We're at 19 minutes. In just a minute, Aaron, do me a favor. Aaron is producing the show today. Actually, he's been producing all the shows, but he's producing it by himself this time too, as well. So kudos to Aaron this time. If you have not registered for our in-person event that's happening on Monday, so it's Super Cyber Friday Monday edition, click on the link at the bottom for that. You can attend if you're going to be there in person or virtually. There is an option to do it either way. And so let me ask this next question. Is there a situation to get better asset management control? Is it just a situation of discovering what you've got and deleting the stuff that shouldn't be where it is? Or is it just really gap analysis, Zakir, like you were describing before?
I think you're always going to be playing catch up if you're in that kind of former situation. So I think it's not a notion of we're going to clean this up once and this problem will go away. I think it's more of a matter of how do we provide ourselves with continuous visibility under the assumption that this is actually just going to keep getting worse.
Yeah, and this gap, man, and this was the thing we said. I mean, would a better way to view this as gap management, Brennan?
I almost would challenge the fundamental here, right? If you start from the perspective that you think you know everything, you're wrong. And so, to Zakir's point, you've got to whether it's attack surface outside or in systems internally, you've got to know what's in the environment on a continuous basis, and you've got to be detecting for variance, right? So the conversation stops being one of, oh, I've done my audit of the environment, and turns into one of, I have continuous visibility to the areas I need to see.
All right, let's get the poll up. It's Aaron, it's closing it, so we're going to get the poll up in just a few seconds. And the issue that we saw when we were talking about this on an earlier show with the attack surface management is that this is really ongoing, right, Zakir? It's not like it's an endless daily thing. So what is the advice on the sort of the daily management of this? Like, I'm looking at it now, but what am I doing on a daily basis of coping with this?
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping you're not coming in looking at it every day, actually. That sounds like a terrible job. My hope would be that where we're telling you about things that you need to go off and actively look at. I mean, there's always going to be, I think, an infinite number of alerts coming in from all of these security products. I think the question is always going to become one of prioritization. Which of these things is publicly exposed? People are looking to exploit it. It's connected to something that's of high value to the company. It's really a prioritization game.
And let me ask, does Census give you that sort of, categorization or essentially leveling up so that you can connect what is, high value to gaps? Yes.
Yep. And that's what we're looking at and want to continue down that path of let's focus you on what really matters the most on your attack surface.
And one of the other things that a CISO said was, I want to look at our gaps in the way an attacker sees our gaps. Is Census doing that?
That's
is
pretty
it
much
showing me in that way?
Yeah, that's almost exactly what Census is trying to do. Instead of saying, let's look at requiring plugins and connectors and all of this, let's just say, what does an attacker actually see about you? And connect that with what's most important to you and use that to help prioritize what really needs to be fixed. But it really starts from this attacker-centric point of view.
That totally makes sense, Brennan, because if you look at it any other way, you really just don't know how the attackers are looking at it. You just don't.
And I think in addition to the technical side, let's split this down the middle. There's a technical side of this and there's a user side of this. So at the same time, you should be doing OSINT against your own organization to discover, who's putting stuff out on LinkedIn, who's got profiles where they shouldn't, how many compromised accounts do I have sitting out on the dark web? Those all are data points for what I need to do to keep the environment safe.
Yeah, and I think if I can jump onto that, I think there's actually a big combination there too of saying, let's stop looking at these individual risks and say, like, who keeps bringing up all of these assets? I always throw our marketing department under the bus on this of they're the folks who keep bringing things up in unknown clouds. Like, let's go fix that organizational problem. Like, why do you think you need to keep doing this? What's going on? But let's also try to be a little bit more proactive of understanding why people are bringing up this infrastructure in weird, unexpected places.
Yeah, it goes right back to, if you don't know what your organization needs, you can't secure it effectively. It will always find a way around your controls if you're not having a conversation with them about what is it that you need and how do we make that for you so that it's done effectively and securely.
All right. I have a really good question that just came in from Rich Mason. By the way, if you've not registered for our Monday event, go ahead and register for that as well. And in addition, our poll is live. Please vote in the poll because that will determine what you vote up will determine usually what we'll be asking the Department of Yes, which we're going to play in 6 minutes exactly. All right. Great question from Rich Mason. And I want to know the pro and con to this answer. And that is deception question. Do you consider fake networks and devices to be part of your attack surface? Why or why not? Secure.
I would say probably no, because it doesn't sound like they're valuable. Usually for us, I think customers will say, let's figure out how to segment those out. Like, don't feed us noise. Maybe it's something you want to be aware of, but I doubt that's where people want to prioritize their effort.
Okay. And I'm going to ask the same question to you, Brennan, but I want to know why it would make a good idea to actually make it part of your attack surface.
So I think making it part of the attack surface monitoring gives you better visibility again to what an attacker is seeing and whether or not, for example, you might be giving a very rich honeypot over on a particular system that is seen from the outside world as something as a valuable target versus looking at the rest of the environment.
And I would also assume you'd want to do that to see if the darn honeypots are working or not. Yes, Zakir?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, so I think I get the sense that there's a benefit and a benefit. Essentially, there's pros and cons against doing it. That's a good question, Rich. I like that question. All right. Again, make sure you get to your votes in. All right. So how are you doing this, Brennan, in that the sense of understanding what are your crown jewels, understanding where your gaps are, and managing the two together? Can you come and give me an example of how you actually go today? You say, oh, I see this. Now I need to manage it. Like, what is the process that happens?
Sure. So, and a little bit of a plug. I'm also a census user for exactly this reason.
Awesome.
So we start out by looking at the data we're getting from census and determining whether or not what it's seeing is valid. And then it's a process of understanding who owns the thing that we're detecting and who needs to address the variance. And then finally getting in with them and spending the time to understand, is this a variance that exists because they weren't following a certain process or they worked around a process or they needed something they didn't have? Like what was the root cause of the variance in the first place? And then work with them to lock that down in a way that makes sense for everybody. So it's and that's comparing it to the data that's exposed and what's going on. And so there's a lot of sort of critical thinking questions that drives that conversation.
Zakir, I want to know what you've learned from your customers. This is the thing that I always love is that when you put a product out there and you say, I think our customers are going to use it like this, and then they say, no, we're going to use it like this. What was the, no, we're going to use it like this? And again, it's not the whole thing, but there's an aspect of it. What was that, no, we're going to use it like this? Like eye-opening moment you had with your product?
So we started thinking we were really doing unknown asset discovery. We were going to just go find what it is that other folks had brought online, and we would feed that into existing security tools, and they would be more complete, and that would be better. And what folks said was, no, we don't just want more in our existing tools. What we want really is to think about exposure. It's not about discovery. It's about having comprehensive knowledge of our exposure. And part of that means you have to go out and discover the things we don't know about because they're part of our exposure, but also pull in the data from clouds, pull in other data sources. Don't focus on just finding unknowns, focus on everything and prioritizing within that. And we really thought that a lot of the existing security tools were providing that. We're telling people what they had exposed. And I think what we found was that a lot of these tools all had their little fractured piece of the story, but it was still really hard to ask what felt like really simple questions when something like Log4j happened. People didn't have a place where they could just go and ask comprehensively, where is everything that might be vulnerable?
All right.
Send them in. We need your bad ideas.
Already got that one. That's not what I wanted to hit. Oh, we get a call that just came in.
Hello, welcome to the Department of Yes, where no request is ever rejected.
All right, we're going to play the best bad idea, the Department of Yes game. We got lots of great bad ideas that came in the polls. One of these is clearly the winner, but we have others that are tied here. There's two that are tied. Yes, I see. Tied. All right, so here we go. This one I know it came in from Sean Bowen, and here's his horrible idea. Again, you're playing the Department of Yes, and Zakir, I'm going to make you answer this one first. Why you want to actually do this? Increase your attack surface so the threat actors get lost trying to find the important stuff. So kind of a security through obscurity way to handle it. Why do you want to do this?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great idea. It makes the attacker's job harder, and that's strictly better. And here's the great thing about adding more. You don't have to know what you already have. It's completely in your control to simply add more things into the pile. So why go after the hard task if you could simply take the easy path?
It's like the needle in a haystack. I like it. I like that. All right. Brandon, why do you want to do this?
I'm going to dovetail a little bit off the needle in the haystack, and that's awesome as well. But it actually gains so much more support from the rest of the IT organizations because they're not having to go do all of that work. And that means they'll buy me more beer.
Good point. If you can make less work for others, that's excellent. All right. Okay, so here we have who is voted up the most. We got two that are tied right now. I'm gonna go for this one here. This is this comes from Brian Colt. Convince your CEO and board to set the organization's risk tolerance to, quote, ludicrously high, so you don't have to worry about your attack surface. I don't know if you'd have to worry about the security department at this time either, would you, Brennan?
You might not. And I think there's an underlying assumption that they aren't already setting that risk tolerance to ridiculously high. But, I think sometimes it means that I don't have to have hard conversations about how bad decisions could lead to bad outcomes. It just means that I have to nod my head and have them sign on the dotted line.
That's good. Sir, yes, sir. I like it. All right. Let's hear it, Zakir. Why do you want to set the organization's risk tolerance to ludicrously high?
Well, I mean, why pay for the insurance if you're not going to use it?
Which, by the way, I'm gonna give you that. I'm gonna give you that. Oh yeah! But at the same time, if it was ludicrously high, I don't know if you'd actually get the insurance. We've been talking to some people that a lot of people are getting rejected on cyber insurance because they don't have certain security issues in place. But I don't know if that would count on your risk tolerance. If your risk tolerance was high, yet you had your security controls in place. So it might not be the same thing. I think we're good in either way. Anyways, excellent job, Brian Colt and Sean Bowen. Brian and Sean, who I know who have both been on our shows many times before, please get ready. We're going to have you on at 40 minutes past the hour, which is 8 minutes from now. Get your questions in. We got two more questions coming in. This from someone who I do not know. Oh, no, it is from Alan Alford, who... And Alan asked, who, by the way, was my former co-host on Defense in Depth and now has his own show called the Cyber Ranch Podcast. What is the process for incorporating threat modeling into the entire attack surface management process? How often should one re-threat model? That's a damn good question. Zakir, you're nodding your head. How do you handle that?
Yeah, I mean, this should be happening continuously. I don't think it's a matter of, we're going to apply new data once a quarter, like you're too late. I think this is, again, part of this prioritization game. And to me, it's one input. What are people actually attacking is a great thing to be looking at compared to what's actually valuable. Why are you patching things that no one is going after? Yeah, maybe perfect world be an infinite time we would be, but the reality is we don't. And I think it's just another input into how you decide what you want to fix first.
I think this is, and Alan asked a really good question, and your answer is great, in that we're combining all the three things in just a more refined, directed approach to dealing with understanding our gaps, understanding what we have is most valuable, understanding what the attackers are seeing, and then the threat modeling is understanding how they're actually doing it. So it's a really nice combination. Anything to add to that, Brennan?
Yeah, I think, especially watching things like the data breach intelligence report, right? Every
Right.
year it tells you a lot about what's happening and where things are going. And if you watch it year over year, you can start to predict where the next attack surface is going to come from and start to put your controls in place before that. Because it's just the same attack systems over and over and over again.
Brendan, let me ask you a question, and I've asked other CISOs this very question. Do you, when the DBIR comes out, do you actually reassess your security program as a
Yep.
result of what you read? You do?
Yep, I do. And in fact, I'll take it a step further. One of the things that I've been doing for years is tracking all of the results over the years so that I can see the flow table of what attack vectors are most common and what attack vectors are fading away, and start to understand why, so that I can look and say, okay, are we really putting enough towards, for example, phishing tests in the environment, knowing that attacks via phishing are some of the most prominent in the environment right now. And that'll change, right? Eventually the security controls will be sufficient that people turn to another thing. There'll always be an attack vector you're not paying attention to.
All right, I'm going to ask you this follow-up question from Rich, and then I want to secure your answer to this. With this comes from Rich Mason. With networks and assets now so ephemeral, how do we shift from point-in-time assessments of our attack surface to continuous assessment management? I essentially was teasing this at the beginning. How are you? I mean, I want to know more structurally, like within your organization, process-wise, how are you doing that? How are you pulling?
Yeah. We're looking at things like not only the census information, but we're combining that with continuous view of what's happening on my network in terms of just hosts in the environment, users connected into the environment at a given moment. I should be able, in a well-run organization, I should be able to pin down who's where on what, when, and why. And when I can do that, I've got a much better understanding of what's happening and what the heartbeat of the environment really looks like, and can detect then when things start to look a little askew.
All right. What have you experienced either through your own product or through your clients in terms of moving from the point in time to, because you mentioned at the beginning, most people do point in time, to the continuous assessment? Secure.
I mean, I think that's where everyone wants to go, and everyone knows that. No one ever wants to be in a point of time. I think the question is, how do you keep up with it? If there's continuously more coming in, you can't have the game of we're going to manually work through this list and figure out what's important or what's not. The system really has to do that for you and point you to what's important. I think the other piece is the cloud is so ephemeral and complex that you can't just look at the problem on the outside and think you're going to know what to fix. It used to be you looked at the IP, you knew what the problem was, you SSH into the IP, you fixed the problem. Like now it could be in one of 17 different layers somewhere in AWS. And so I think part of it is also trying to help folks fix the actual problem when it actually might be fairly disconnected from what the actual exposure is. And we've seen folks really struggle with that.
Mm-hmm. All right. More, are these the same questions or more questions come in? Lots of good. This is, oh no, all the same questions. All right. So, do we have our 10, let's put up our 10% better poll. Do we have enough 10% ideas in? Let's get that up just a couple of minutes early, Aaron, if we can swing that, because I'd like to see what those are. And then we're going to, in just 3 minutes, we'll bring on both Sean and Brian to challenge each other is who has the best bad idea. And again, register for Monday if you haven't already. And I have something that everybody wanted to see. Here we go. My cowboy hat for you, Alan Alford. You're very welcome. That's for you. I'm doing that here. Let me tilt it back. There you go. I hope Alan appreciates this as well. I'm not going to entire show in a Batman voice. I can't do that at all. All right. Let me get to one more of my questions. Here we go. I'll start with you, Brendan, on there. Is there any sort of secret to managing these gaps as you see them? Or is it more of the same? Has that process changed at all?
You know, it has, in as much that it forces us to have a better understanding of the data in the environment, and what is where. If I don't know that, I can't prioritize. And so it means that I spend a tremendous amount of energy, and my team spends a tremendous amount of energy really understanding what is the data that we're trying to protect and what are the vectors that it could come in from. And from there, I can look at something quickly so I can get an alert on census or internally and say, oh, oh, that one matters. Oh, I need to pay attention to that right now. Versus other things, I'm going to have to defer, or I'm going to have to, put in the ServiceNow ticket and hope our teams can get to it in a reasonable period of time. But there are some things, and I think we have, as CISOs, we have limited number of do this right now cachet in an environment, and if we misuse that, it will come back and haunt us. So
that's a really good point. Like, how many do you have, like a certain number per month, per year? What do you think you got?
I don't have a number. What I know is I can look at something fairly quickly and say, oh, this is going to be bad. Because I know how my organization operates. I know what the threats look like. I know what the vulnerabilities are. I know what the data is. And I can quickly kind of assess that and say, okay, let's spend our energy here and get that one fixed. And this one's really important. I don't pull it out unless I really think, this
When's
one's
the last one you pulled one out? How long ago did you pull one out?
Log4j.
I can't do this much longer.
Log4j was a great example, right? It was
okay. Yeah, that one
pervasive, and a lot of the energy has to go into helping people understand why you're acting differently this time than you might have other times, right? If I just go to them and say, yeah, there's a vulnerability we should do something about, that's a different conversation than I need you to stop what you're doing. I don't care if servers are down. Go fix this now, right? And that's a tone change that if they're not ready for that or not used to hearing that, then I have to do some schooling right there.
But Log4j, being that it was so global and so universal and it hit the mainstream press, that I think, like, let's just say you got a lot of help from outside.
You do, but you can never underestimate people's unwillingness to listen to moving their cheese, right? Like,
okay.
There's lots of people who would say, yeah, that's great, but I've got this other priority I'm supposed to work on. Right. And if the messaging isn't coming consistently throughout the environment, it's hard to really get that grouping in to deal with it.
All right. We have a lot of facial hair on the show right now. I just want to point that out.
This is better.
Sean wins. I'm just going to say it out there. Sean wins currently.
And it's trimmed too. It's way shorter than normal.
It looks good. There's Sean, Bo, and Brian Colt. By the way, all right. Two truly awful ideas. This is the way it works, Brennan and Zakir. Brennan, Zakir, they are going to defend their bad ideas as truly being the worst. So, Sean, you have to explain why yours is way better than Brian's, and Brian vice versa. So feel free to put down their bad ideas as not being that awful. And then Brennan and Zakir, you are the judges. You are the ones who are going to determine who truly has the worst idea. You don't have to agree. You can be split decision. All right. Sean's, I'm going to remind everybody, is rename all your public-facing hosts. No, that's not yours. Sorry, that was Dwayne's. I'm sorry. That was it. Yours was the one, increase the attack surface so the threat actors get lost trying to find the important stuff. Sean, why is that such a great idea? And why it's so much better than Brian's, which, let me remind everybody, convince your CEO to set risk to ludicrously high.
So yeah, thanks for giving me Brian's again, because it was so bland I forgot what it was. Since you want me to insult his, no. Why? So we all know that there's no supply chain issues, and that the cost of running, additional systems in the cloud are very cheap. So this is an incredibly, obviously, all sarcasm, incredibly expensive endeavor to increase your attack surface so large that the threat actors would get lost, which means you're probably like 10x, 20x of your environment. And at the cost of IT today and at the speed of logistics and supply chain, you just won't be able to achieve it.
Good argument. And by the way, I love the put down at the beginning. Brian, you got to come back at that. All right, ludicrously high risk. Why is yours so much better than Sean's?
Well, first of all, mine is free, right? It just costs words. It doesn't cost the firm anything. So right there, it's better.
On the back end, it might cost some.
Well, yeah, you set it so high, you don't have to do anything. Implement no controls. You effectively become uninsurable. So no insurance company is going to give you cyber insurance. So you save money on the premiums there. And I mean, high risk, high reward, right? Think of the dollar signs in your CEO's eyes when you're cutting costs.
There could be high reward.
And potential revenue.
The insurance isn't going to ask about your risk threshold. They just want to know if you have MFA, and then they give you insurance nowadays.
Yeah, but if your risk threshold is so high, you're not going to have those controls, so they won't give you insurance.
All right. Zakir, Brennan, I want to know from the two of you, which one truly has the worst idea? Is it Sean with the just expand the attack surface, so kind of the needle in the haystack move, or is it Brian's just crank up the risk acceptance to the highest possible level? Zakir, what do you think? Who's got the worst idea?
I have to go with Sean's because I'm not convinced people aren't doing what Brian's recommending already.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got to agree with that entirely. I think it is happening like crazy already, and we're only now understanding the tip of the iceberg.
All right. Very, very good. All right. So Sean, kudos to you. Brian,
Thank y'all.
It sounded like you were situation normal for everybody else.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
That's
I can't
scary.
say that my last company was pretty much the same. Yeah, that just felt like where I was previously working at.
But again, a good point that it's conceivable with Brian's idea, you could make a lot of money. It's conceivable.
Yeah,
it is very conceivable. All right, thank you, Brian. Thank you, Sean, very much. You can take them away, Aaron. Thank you very much. All right, let's get back to the point. We have, by the way, some more questions that have come in, and also I just also want to mention that we have our 10% poll up, and go ahead and vote. And a lot of people have. And I'm just going to mention this one. Please speak up if this is your good idea, your 10% tip. Bounty program for boots on the ground employees to find vulnerabilities or poor security practices in their daily environment. So that's an interesting thing, sort of like a little bug bounty program internally. Brennan, you're nodding your head. Does something like that exist at your company, or are you thinking about implementing now?
In previous organizations, it doesn't exist at the moment in the company I'm at now, but in previous organizations, I have used something exactly like that. Not only did we uncover breakdowns from a technical perspective, but we found issues related to financial controls that way, and we're able to provide additional support for our audit and compliance organization.
Can you give me a little more detail? Like, how did it actually work? What was it you were offering? How did you do it? Because this is very interesting.
Ours was a gamified version where we essentially had the polls open for every quarter, and got a whole bunch of submissions through the course of a quarter, and then would pull from the box what we considered to be the best submission, the one that would have the most potential impact on the organization. And we were able to either go after that from a security perspective or go after that from a finance or process perspective.
All right. By the way, giving credit to Ty, that was his suggestion.
Ty.
So thank you very much, Ty, on that. And by the way, have you seen something like this, Zakir?
Yeah, I've seen it. And I love the idea. I mean, I think it's a fantastic idea. I think it's maybe a little bit orthogonal to what we're doing. I think it's one of those things where maybe you find some things, you find some of the things faster. You really don't lose something. But I think it would be hard for me to rely on that as the only solution.
I fully agree. One of the things that we realized that it did, however, was open a communication channel between security and the user community. And that was golden.
And I would also throw, I mean, that is golden. Also throw out, I mean, honestly, you're filling gaps. You're not filling all of them, but you're filling gaps. I mean, that's what and this is kind of the name of the game here, isn't it? By the way, one of the other good tips here was, and I'll just put it on for just a moment, wear a cowboy hat. All the best ideas come from people who wear cowboy hats. I know Alan Alfred appreciates that greatly as well. I don't know if that's true. By the way, I just, when I bought this house, I didn't actually buy it. It was given as a gift for an event I went to. It was in Austin, and I was the idiot because you can't really pack something like this because it's hard. So I was the idiot on the plane wearing a damn cowboy hat. I did put it down, but walking through the airport wearing a cowboy hat, I felt like an idiot doing that. But then again, in Texas, you're not that stupid, but I did not look like a Texan by any stretch. Alan can pull this off. I cannot. Anyways, all right, we have only just a few more minutes left, and let's get to some of our last few questions. By the way, if you have not registered for Monday, go ahead and do that as well. And stick around, everybody. I'm going to say this right now. Stick around for our meetup. It is a ton of fun. And no, don't be shy about it, like, oh, I don't know if I can handle it. These people are so much smarter than me, or maybe you're thinking the other way of, these people are so stupid, I don't want to deal with them. Don't think either way. By the way, this is such a warm, welcoming community. If it's not already evidenced by the chat room right now, please join us. Even if you have not said one word in the chat room, come join us. We really, really want you. That link at the bottom will change to that link. So you can click and register for next week and join us in just a few minutes. Essentially in about 5 minutes, it'll change to the other link to join us. All right, let's get to our next questions. This comes from Mike Toole asks a good question. I'm throwing this to you, Zakir. What even is an asset in a world of automation, containers, and infrastructure as code? All right, you're laughing. What is it?
I love this question. To me, it's anything that can pose a risk. It has to be a very kind of abstract, fluid. It could be a website, it could be a bucket, it could be a container, it could be an API, it could be a login, it could be a device. Anything that someone might use to attack you, is something that you want to be accounting for.
That's a damn good. Brennan, you're nodding your head. Nothing more to add to that?
Nothing more to add. He's absolutely square on.
Okay. John Doe asks another question here. I like this one as well. I'm throwing this to you, Zakir. Prior to getting census, all right? I'm just going to say prior to getting census is probably the best solution here. I'm throwing it out there. But for a startup, what would be the best way to determine their attack surface without spending lots of money and effort?
Yeah, so one thing you can do is Census has a free search engine. There also exist tools like Shodan. Go stick your IP range in and see what is out there. It's free. Search.census.io. You're going to find stuff. You can do it manually too. You can go run Nmap, Zmap, these other tools and see what's out there. But I would say go stick your ranges into these free search engines and see what comes back.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that DNS Dumpster. You can find so much good stuff just looking through DNS Dumpster.
And did you do that before you even discovered Census?
Yes, absolutely. And okay. Then I started with the free version and then moved on from there.
All right. Well, there you go. There is a process to get there. All right. Here's a question for you, Brennan. I'm assuming for you because we brought this up with you from Ty again. If there are multiple global universal threats like Log4j, I'm sure you don't want that, but just say if there was, they hit one after another, how would you manage them in succession without sounding like Chicken Little, which I know that's got to be probably a grand fear. Like, how do you avoid that?
Yeah. Some of it is just a frank conversation, right? And it's a frank conversation. I would start with the executive leadership of the organization that says, listen, we're in a terrible position. Here's what it looks like. And here's what needs to happen to fix this. We're going to continue to see these. And I would probably have this conversation when number 2 of the, oh my gods, hit the plate, right? We're going to continue to see these until we address some of these root causes that are creating these situations, right? We all know what it is. There's a hygiene issue. There's a diligence issue, right? These are fundamentals to all information security and any control program, right? You've got to do the basics. You got to do the basics well, and you've got to do them continuously. And until you're in the position that you can say that, you're going to continue to see these problems emerge. And even then, there's still going to be stuff that happens. Helping people understand, SolarWinds, as painful as that SolarWinds attack was, it helped people understand that attacks can come not just from third parties, but from fourth party risk. And that's a big change in mindset for a lot of folks. But as they start to understand it, they're like, oh, I get it now, right? It's not difficult. You're explaining an automobile to them, right? You got a steering engine, or the steering controls, you've got the engine, you've got control of that, but you have no idea who manufactured the components that made up some of that car.
And the other thing I think I would add is a lot of times what we find are really kind of organizational process failures, right? I think when you see something go wrong, you can't say, let's go fix it and then move on to the next one. I think it's the opportunity for a conversation. Like, why did you think we needed to bring these things up here? What is it that IT needs to be providing that they're not? It's a dialogue. If you keep chasing after the things that haven't been patched forever, you're never really going to get ahead of it. I think you want to use this to say, okay, something went wrong. Let's fix the broader organizational problem that led to this security issue arising.
Good point. All right. I am going to get to the point right now where I'm going to sort of wrap up the show. I'm going to ask you for your final thoughts. So hang tight as I just do some of these final little wrap up things. Again, if you have not clicked on the link at the bottom of the screen. Do it this very second, in fact, because that's going to change. All right? Like literally seconds. Aaron, go ahead and change the link at the bottom for our meetup. There it is. Ta-da, it just changed. But guess what? If you didn't do that, you can always go to CISOseries.com and register there, or actually go to Armor Blocks. That's the company that the sponsor that's going to be handling that event. They can go to their site, and there's a link at the top of their screen as well to register specifically if you're going to be there in person. All right. Next thing is I want to thank our sponsor, Census. You see how they're spelled? If you had a .io at the end of that, you will get to their website. So go ahead, check them out if this topic of attack surface management interests you. By the way, they have a demo video right there on the top of their site, so check that out as well. Guess what? Starting in about, well, let's say 95 minutes from now, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Pacific, we're doing our Cybersecurity Headlines Week in Review show with Steve Zalewski, who is my co-host over at Defense in Depth. And it will be not on this platform, but actually on LinkedIn. So you go watch it over on LinkedIn on the CISO Series channel right there as well. Stick around for our meetup. Please click the link at the bottom. You could do it right now and join in right now. And then also tell all your friends to join us. We do this most Fridays. In fact, we're going to be off a few Fridays because of RSA, because of another event we're doing. But we do this most Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. If you would like to sponsor a Super Cyber Friday, just email me to david@cisoseries.com, and we can get you scheduled. We actually, I think, middle of July is our next available slot we have for us. All right, we have 5 minutes left, so I'm going to start with you, Zakir. Any last thoughts on this topic of attack surface management? Any pitch you'd like to make for Census? If you have an offer for our audience, let us know. What do you got?
Oh, man, I would say we're going to be at RSA. We'd love to talk to anyone who is there about this, about attack surface management, about internet data, about any of it. But I think my big thing is this problem isn't going away. It's just getting worse. Every piece of data we see is, again, this 2.5 times number is just mind-boggling to me. Like 2.5 times as many assets. It's like, I feel like we expect number 5%, 10%, 2.5 times as many. And we're going to have to get after this. It's not going away.
No, it's not. Yeah, as I said, I've been going to RSA year after year after year. I've had the same darn discussion. You know what this discussion is also like? And I saw Clay Shirky, who, by the way, if anyone's ever seen him speak, really, really bright guy. You know the term of information overload. We're not talking about security, but information overload. Do you know the first time that concept came about was when the Gutenberg press was out? Because that was the first time we could print more books than a human could read. And guess what? We've had that information overload discussion since then. We're having this same discussion like this for a long time. It's evolved. And I'll tell you, the way Clay Shirky put it, and I think it's the same thing. I think what you're doing with Census is it's not an information overload problem. It's a filter breakdown problem. When your filters start breaking, that's when you feel information overload. So need tools like Census to essentially manage it as well. So thank you very much on that. Brennan, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I'm actually going to put a little bit more plug in for Census. One of the things that it brought to us that was a challenge for every other place that we looked, whether it was tool sets, Kali, any of that, it puts the data into a single pane of glass. And when we talk about information overload, one of the biggest challenges that I see for information security professionals these days is there's too many places to find too much data. We have to simplify. And that's part of what an offering like Census brings, is that ability to see in a single pane of glass what's really going on, which is part of the reason that we make such heavy use of it.
All right, now let me ask the other question for both of you. Are you both hiring? Yes?
Absolutely.
You're both hiring. Okay. We always have people who join our crowd who love their job, some not so much love their job, or looking for their first job, or looking to jump ship. Whatever. You're both going to be around for our meetup portion, yes?
Yep.
Yes.
So if you have questions about Census, if you have questions about maybe working for one of these companies, or anything else, or you just want to come and schmooze, stick around for our meetup as well. I think we're done here, so we're going to end that. We're going to wrap this up about 60 seconds early. Thank you very much to my guests, Zakir and Brennan. Zakir at Census, and also Brennan at Genesis Financial Solutions. I got that out very well. Click the link at the bottom of the screen. Join us for the meetup. Let's have fun for a half hour, schmoozing with each other. And here's a big thing. Try not to glom into like 8-person groups. Like, try to keep your groups 2 to 4 at most. And don't feel shy about jumping from one to the next. Don't worry about it. Oh, Census here. Here, let me put their link here. Census.io. There we go. Click their link right there. Everyone, all right, Aaron, I think we're done. Take us out.